Welcome to the Horror Ghoulies podcast. It's going to be a real spooker.
Yay, that was great. Welcome, Ghoulies. I'm Rebel.
I'm Mitch.
I'm Steve. E. Suppose I should be accurate.
So, yeah, well, you go by whatever.
And we're back with episode, 4, I think?
4. I think it's 4, yeah. My goodness, we've made it this far.
Yeah, episode 4. Big. I'll be happy when we hit like 10, but...
Double digits. Yo.
Yeah, man.
What have y'all been up to?
I worked this week. That's all I did. It was boring.
I also worked this week. I feel like my week was super busy, but I don't remember any of it. It all blurs together.
Stevie, you want to tell us about your Las Vegas trip?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I forgot.
We haven't talked since.
We haven't, yeah.
Wow. What was great. Thought my friends might get hitched. They didn't.
Damn.
Rats. But they did get engaged, so very happy for them. Shout out to those homies. I think Allie probably listens to I think she listens to our podcast, so.
Oh, well, congratulations, Allie.
Congratulations.
Woo!
It's about time.
Also, other than that, boyfriend got cursed for sure.
Oh, shit.
We went to the Zach Bagans Museum, and he definitely left with a curse.
Oh, fuck.
So, like, twice over.
I think he left with 2.
Yeah, 2. There's like this head of a man who was killed for witchcraft in the 1700s in there. And before you go in the room, they're like, you don't have to go in there. Anyone who doesn't want to. And I didn't want to, but no one else didn't want to. So I had to go because I'd look like a pussy if I didn't. So we all go in the room and they told us, this is this man's final resting place. Do not speak out of respect. And we go in there, and as we're like walking by it, I guess Trenton goes, that's fucking freaky or something like that. And, oh my God. He definitely just got cursed. But also at the very end of the museum, when you're kind of like leaving, there's this weird like box thing, and you can look, there's like a peephole, and you look through it, and apparently you see like a man in a top hat, and he's been known to follow you home and visit your dreams and give you sleep paralysis. And Trenton looks at it. None of the rest of us did, because we didn't want that shit. He looks at it, and he didn't believe in it, of course. He was kind of like, nothing's gonna happen. And that night, or no, more like that morning, the next morning, when we wake up, he's like, well, it happened. You saw the top hat man at the end of our bed. That was probably my favorite part of the trip.
He still didn't believe it, did he? He's like, oh, I just, was thinking about it.
He was just like,
it's like,
yeah. He was like, whatever. No big deal. And I'm like, a ghost followed you to the hotel room. Not a big deal, my ass.
I can totally see Trenton just being all chill about it. Like, okay.
I told him, I was like, our plane's gonna crash because of you.
Yeah.
That was your first plane ride, right?
Yes. Oh my God. So the plane from, up here to Chicago, that was fine. It was kind of small, so it was a little sketchy. But the big plane we got on from Chicago to Vegas, we start going, we're picking up speed, and all of a sudden it goes clunk,
Oh, fuck.
and the whole plane jerks. And we had to deboard the plane and get on a different one. If that didn't give me a heart attack.
Oh,
No, it was just funny because I was like trying to encourage her, like, I've been on planes before, it's fine. No, her first plane ride, that happens. I felt so bad after she told me. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I think we jinxed you.
Maybe a little. On the first plane that I got on, the smaller one, that one really, I don't know. When it took off, I actually had to I'm gonna black out, and I almost did. I was I was fading out real fast. It was terrifying.
When it took off?
Yeah, well, it was taking off. We were getting up there. We were probably a few thousand feet up, and I looked over at all my friends, and I was like, I'm gonna black out. It's gonna happen.
Oh, shit.
I was panicking for a second there. Oh, I didn't say the name, did I? It was the Zach Bagans Museum.
Yes.
Which was so good. It was so good, but I would never return, ever.
Which I'm sad about because I want to go really, really bad, and she refuses to go with me now. So
Yeah.
if anyone wants to
sounds
volunteer, let me know.
I'd go.
I'd love to
Everyone
go.
I
Yeah.
know wants to go. If you all go at the same time together, because Bruce also wants to go. And I said,
Okay.
maybe when I build up the courage again, but it'll be a while. If you guys both go at the same time, maybe I'll join you. But there are rooms that
Okay,
I'm
well-
not going to enter again.
We will definitely do like a horror Ghoulies.
Road trip.
Oh, Horror Ghoulies
Horror
road trip.
Ghoulies
Yeah.
road trip.
Yo, that would be so fun though.
That'd be fun.
If we did like a little
Yeah.
stream or something of us going through like haunted houses and stuff across country.
Ooh, that'd be cool. Horror
Yes.
Ghoulies. Look at this.
That would be so fun.
Haunted
Horror
house.
Ghoulies on the road.
We got like a bunch of spin-offs we can do now. We can do video
Oh,
game
yes.
spin-offs. We can do haunted house spin-offs.
Oh yes.
Anyway,
What movie did we do this week?
it was The Black Phone.
Ooh,
Absolutely delicious. Highly recommend.
highly delicious.
I guess, however, it wouldn't be for everyone, but I don't give a shit what you like. It's a good movie. Watch it.
Oh my.
What do you guys think?
It wasn't, I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't what I was expecting. But at the same time, it was exactly what I was expecting. And I don't know how they did that.
Yeah.
I really don't know how they did that. They did exactly what I was expecting and nothing what I was expecting at the same time.
right. Mitch?
Yeah, this movie came out in like just after the pandemic, and I was like super excited to see it. And then I was kind of disappointed because like I thought it was going to be a lot more like, it's a dark movie. It's about child abductions and murders, but like I thought they were going to show more. If you guys have seen Sinister, like Sinister shows more like children dying and stuff like that, and I thought it was going to be more like that, but I think they toned it back because they wanted to like feel like more of a audience, I guess.
Yeah, I thought it was going to have more, I don't want to say depth because it has a lot of depth to it, but I thought it was going to be like scarier or like make you think more, but
Right. I would describe it as kind of like a light horror for someone who doesn't like horror.
Yeah. I don't even really know how it's rated R. I think it's just rated R because of the language, honestly. Like
They say the C word.
you see like one dead child with a slit throat and that's it. So
Mhm.
but I don't know. It could have went darker. It could have went like
I could see where they could have made the story a lot more scarier.
yeah.
And like when the previews came out, they made it seem so much more.
Yeah.
And I think it disappointed a lot of people because of that.
Yeah, it disappointed me. I thought it was going to be like way different, but
Yeah.
it's grown on me. Like the first time I watched it, I was disappointed. And the second time I watched it, I was like, oh, this is actually really good. And then third time I watched it, I was like, this is awesome. And then the fourth time I was like, I like it a lot. So it's definitely gone up in score for me.
So it sounds like everyone just needs to watch it 4 times.
Yeah, you just need to watch it more to grow on you.
I definitely want to watch it again because since I was taking notes, I feel like I didn't get the full effect of it.
Yeah.
But I'm very happy with the movie. There's,
Yeah.
there's some things I would change, and I'm really excited to kind of get into that. But overall, like just generally taking the movie for how it is, it was very, very good.
Yeah. Scott Derrickson's awesome. We definitely need to do Sinister. That movie's awesome. It's got an 82% on Rotten Tomato and an 88% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, which is pretty good. And then I don't know what the IMDb score is.
6.9 out of 10.
Oh wow, that's pretty good for IMDb.
It's 3.7 out of 5 on Goodreads.
On Goodreads.
Yeah, it's apparently a short story.
Yeah, it's based on Stephen King's son wrote it.
Okay.
What's his name? Joe Hill or something.
It's a story from the collection 20th Century Ghosts, Joe Hill. I did not know that. I want to read that now.
Right? Me too.
Buy on Amazon. Adding to cart.
Yeah, so it's based on a short story by Joe Hill, and it's directed by Scott Derrickson, who also directed Sinister, The Exorcism of Emily Rose, which that's a good movie. And then he's directed some other ones that weren't so good. Hellraiser Inferno, which is like the 4th or 5th Hellraiser. The Day the Earth Stood Still with Keanu Reeves. Did you guys see that one?
Yeah.
I've seen bits.
And then he directed the first Doctor Strange too. So, but we should definitely add Exorcism of Emily Rose to the list. That's a good one.
I want to see that one.
It's like a exorcism movie, but it's also like a courtroom drama. It's really good.
Oh.
Because like I think Emily Rose like dies, and then they're like the priest that performs exorcism is on trial for like manslaughter or whatever.
That's based on the true story
Yeah.
about God, I can't remember her name, but yeah, all of those priests who performed the exorcisms got like justified for it or whatever.
Yeah, it's
prosecuted. That's the word. Hello.
super creepy movie.
And the parents.
We can get into the cast. Mason Thames as Finney Blake, Madeline McGraw as Gwen Blake, which she's like the best character in this whole movie.
I love her so much.
Put her in more stuff. She's awesome.
A little badass.
I do want to say all of these like child actors were amazing.
Yeah.
Most of the time you give them a little leeway because like they're children. So all of them were super good.
Mm-hmm. I really loved Robin's character.
Oh yeah, Robin's awesome. Yeah, too.
Me too. I wish he had more screen time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Same.
Right?
I was just gonna say that. Yeah. Then we got Ethan Hawke as the Grabber, which he's amazing. Obviously,
He did incredible. He really got into that role.
Jeremy Davies as Terrence Blake. That's the dad. Did you recognize him?
The dad.
The dad.
Yeah, right?
What's he on?
He's from Lost.
Okay.
He shows up in the later seasons.
I knew I recognized him, but I couldn't pin where.
I've seen him in something else, but I don't know what. Let me click
He's in
on
a
him.
bunch of shit.
Oh, he's in the house that Jack built. That's on our watch list.
Oh yeah, that's one Lizzie keeps telling me to watch.
Mm-hmm.
It's like 3 hours long. Sorry, Lizzie. We're gonna get to it at some point, but
That's one that you haven't seen, correct? Because we want to watch one that Mitch hasn't seen for once.
yeah. But E. Roger Mitchell and Troy Rudisiel as the detectives, and then you got James Ransone as Max. That's pretty much the main cast. Yeah, so I guess we can just get
We
into
can
it.
get started. All right, so it starts out at a baseball game. We're in North Denver, 1978.
What a good year to be alive.
Oh yeah, I love the setting of this movie so much. I feel like it makes
same.
the movie. It makes the movie so much, and I'll get into that later. But the aesthetic of this film was beautiful and gorgeous, and I just love it. I adore it so much.
The aesthetic of this film is everything. They captured it perfectly.
I feel like they did.
I wasn't from the 70s, but I can with confidence say that
The 70s, what a time to be alive. It's like 20 years before we were all born.
And I wanted to say too, like the opening scene, they're all playing baseball. It's kind of going through like, you know, showing around town, all the kids and everything like that. I just thought that opening scene was like a perfect start for the movie as well. Because it shows, you know, so well the purpose aesthetic of the film, but also like it really lets you know like how young these kids are.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, they're very young, and these kids really grew up through the film.
For sure. I think that's also why it didn't go as dark as it could have, because the kids were so young.
Yeah.
And it's America, and America hates like
That's true.
that kind of shit. So
Don't hurt kids, don't hurt dogs.
there's not a lot of movies that like, well, I don't know. It set 2017 went pretty hard
Yo.
with their opening scene. So
I have heard that. I refuse to watch it, but I have heard that. Yeah.
oh, you never watched it?
No, I do not. No, that is a hard no for me.
Oh, because you clown.
Dude,
oh.
We don't do clowns in this
Oh,
house.
you gotta watch it. It's so good.
No
Wait.
Mm.
It's like Goonies.
We have to make them watch Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
I don't think I can watch that even.
That's
Oh,
like
it's so
you
good.
would be fine with that one. We can
I
show you
don't
the
think
clown.
so. I really don't think
It's so goofy.
It's
I
such a
don't
vibe.
know.
It's such a vibe. That one is like a perfect 80s vibe.
We'll just go through the centuries. We'll have a 70s and an 80s.
Yeah. 90s, we'll watch Scream.
Oh, okay, I can do that. So that's where we meet Finney, is at the baseball game.
Yep.
And he's the pitcher. And he is against this boy that we find out his name is Bruce. And Finney's about to strike him out. You can tell by like the crowd that it's like really close, like a really close game, and like he has to strike this kid out, and
He strikes him out twice.
Yeah, well, he needs to strike him out. He throws 2 strikes.
Yeah.
There's a little girl sitting there that you later find is his sister Gwen that's like cheering him on. And there's another girl. I don't know her name. I don't know if I wrote it down.
I don't know if they say it.
I don't think they ever name her. She's kind of like the crush that he has. That he keeps like staring at her, you know. And so he throws the pitch, and Bruce hits the ball, gets a home run. They lose the game. But instead of being rude about it, he's a good sport. And he says that he tells him his arm is mint.
Yeah.
I really like that saying.
Which I think we should bring that back.
Oh, yeah. Your arm is mint. You almost had me, or something like that.
This movie's mint.
Yeah, you almost had me there. And then Bruce is like riding his bike, which I felt like took way too long, but it really set the aesthetic, so like I'll let him have it. He was like riding his bike down the street, and then he sees a van, and then it just like cuts to the opening scene, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, the opening titles.
Opening sequence? Opening...
Montage.
The opening montage, yes.
Yeah.
Which I find delicious. I really enjoyed that opening montage.
Yeah, it's just like a bunch of kids
That's
like
good.
getting hurt. Like the one kid has like a scraped knee and shit, and then it shows like the grabber van and stuff. It's pretty cool.
Sets up the vibe, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely creepy, for sure.
And then it automatically cuts to like Finney slurping his cereal in the morning.
Yeah.
Kind of like, it just like, I don't know, lightens the mood immediately.
Until you find out his dad's like hungover.
Yeah, his dad's like super hungover and just like an alcoholic and abusive.
Which the dad switches up so much in this movie.
Which I actually like, because I think that's very natural.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't portray that very well, because the dad is hurting. That's why he's drinking. And instead of... Also, trigger warnings for...
Yeah, spoilers too. Spoilers and trigger warnings.
We need to put this at the front of the
I know, we always
so
forget.
sorry, people.
It was like
always forget.
on my
Like,
notes.
saying
We always
these
forget.
out-of-pocket things, and then we're like, oh yeah, we should spoil this. Trigger warnings for abuse, alcoholism, and everything else under the sun.
Child murder. Even though you don't really see anything, but
The dad is definitely an abuser, though.
it's inferred very much.
What?
The moment that the kids wake up in the morning, they know to be quiet because their dad is hungover. And throughout the
Yeah.
whole movie, like,
They're very cautious.
I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but Gwen climbing into bed, just the look on her face, she's afraid of her own dad when she gets in
Yeah.
bed after he catches her awake. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Throughout the whole movie.
And I think, too, like, it's very easy for people to be like, oh, abusers are 100% bad people, and they, you know, just to paint them.
As just evil.
Yeah, and like, yes, they are, because they are hurting other people, but on the flip side of the coin, this kind of shows that there's 2 sides to it, because he himself is hurting so bad. And it's not giving him an excuse, but it helps understand how they are children, but they're taking care of him, and they're like going out of their way to help him. And I think it's easy for people to be like, well, why would they do that? I would just leave home. And it's like, first off, they're kids. But the other point to that is that not only is he their dad, but you could tell there was a time, and there's probably still times, even though he is being abusive now, that he loves and cares for them and actually was a good dad.
Yeah, you see that later in the movie too.
Yeah.
But the kids are so emotionless at that point later in the movie. They just had, like, no emotion towards him.
Yes.
Like, they were just so, at that point, like, contempt.
And they it was really hard for me to watch the scene. We'll get to that scene later. But one of the scenes where the dad was being extra abusive, just because it shows the abuse, and that was very hard. And that's why I think one reason why this movie may have been rated R. I don't know if I don't think that content would really.
It was a pretty graphic scene.
But definitely needs some trigger warnings. It was a very like, I think a lot of people, especially like if you're from kind of like the area that we're from, have experienced similar stuff happen, but just the way it was done was very graphic. But we'll get into that. So Anyway, Finney was slurping his cereal, and the dad makes like a comment like, "Can you slurp it any louder? They can hear you all the way in Boulder." And then the Gwen comes in and accidentally, she was in the bread container and it was a metal bread container and she dropped it. And like they both freeze. And you can tell, and they're like waiting for their dad to snap. And they get scared. The dad's hungover and he's like trying to like talk his way down, I guess. So then they're going on their way to school. They see a poster for Bruce, a missing poster, and they have that conversation that, like, you can really tell that Gwen and a lot of children that come from abusive homes are like this. They're very, very mature for their age. And Gwen is very, very, very mature for her age.
Both of
They
them.
both are. But I think Gwen especially because she is the younger one of the two. I would assume. I always think so. But at one point she calls Finn kid.
Yeah.
And I think that's cute because she takes care of him as well.
I thought that was adorable.
But they see the poster for Bruce and Finney's like, "Oh, do you think that they'll find him?" And she says something along the lines of, "Not in the way they want."
Yeah.
And I think that really puts into perspective of like, when you have cases like this, like the likelihood of missing kids coming back alive is very, very, very slim.
Yeah, and there's already missing kids before that too.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Like, I can't imagine being a small kid and then seeing a bunch of kids around you go disappearing. It's really freaky.
In this, Finney makes a comment to one of the kids like, "We all know who these kids are. We all know their names. All of us kids know their names because they're scared."
Mm-hmm.
When you're in that and when you're in that place where, you know, your friends are getting kidnapped and like it could be you next. I don't know if this was in a small town. I don't necessarily think so,
I think it was Denver.
but it gives a really small town feel.
I think it was pretty small.
Yeah, so because it really gave small town vibes and the class sizes were really small, but I don't know if that's just because they split all the kids up.
Mm-hmm.
But it really gives like a small town vibe, at least, where people were knowing everyone and like at the very least it was a close-knit neighborhood. So I just think that would be a very scary thing to know that like your friends are being taken and like you could be next and like you don't know, because like we find out that they're not, I mean, he's taking boys, but other than that, there's not really much.
Yeah, and they come up with the name the grabber, right?
The grabber, yes.
Because, well, then we see Robin beating up the bully.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then he like beats the crap out of him too.
Yeah.
Like more than he probably should. And then Finn and Gwen just like walk away because Finn's just like, that's a little ridiculous. And then they start talking about the grabber again, and they say his name, and then Finn won't say his name. And she's like, "Oh, you don't believe that, do you? Like, if you say his name, he'll get you or whatever." And he's like, "No, I don't." Blah blah blah. But you can tell that they're like freaked out, you know, or at least Finn is.
And I do like at this point she calls him a chicken, and he kind of makes it look like you can tell like he's been called that before, and like that's like a stigma that is around him a lot. And she immediately apologizes because she knows that like hurt him.
Yeah. So then he's at school, and he like, the class ends and he leaves, and then the bullies follow him into the bathroom, and they're like calling him names and stuff. And then Robin comes into the bathroom and he's just like, "What are you doing?" And then what did he say? He said the bully's name or whatever.
Yeah, Moose.
Yeah, he's like, "Moose has got some sharp teeth. My knuckles are bleeding."
Sharp teeth. My knuckles bled all first period. Like he's just doing it casually, but he's threatening them.
And the bullies are like all freaked out, and they're like ready to leave the bathroom, and he's like, "Wait." He's like, "Don't fuck with Finn anymore."
Now you can go. And that's when you find out too that like him and Finney have a conversation, and that's when you find out that Robin struggles with math and struggles in school a little bit, and Finn tutors him.
Yeah.
And you can tell that Finn doesn't judge him. And I think they have this like camaraderie where like in a normal setting, they probably like, it wouldn't seem that they would get along, but they get along really well and they're friends.
Yeah. And Robin tells him he's going to have to stick up for himself one of these
Yes.
days or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then they just start talking about Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and
Yeah.
he's like, "You got to see it." It's Robin's like, "You got to see it. It's so good." And then Finney's like,
He's like, my dad won't take me to R-rated movies.
"Is it better than Enter the Dragon?"
I love all the, like, they show different movies he's watching and different TV shows of the time period, and I just love the immersion that this movie does.
And Gwen gets called to the principal's office
Yeah, the police question her.
because the two detectives are there. I guess she was like talking to Bruce's sister about a dream that she had about her seeing Bruce get taken.
Yeah, she saw black balloons.
Yeah. So they were just questioning her about it, and then she gets all defensive, and she's like, "Well, you think I'm the grabber, you dumb fucking fart knockers?"
That was so great.
And
She's just like swearing, and
the principal's like, Gwen, we do not use that language.
yeah, she says something else, but I can't remember.
She says something like, he's like twice my size, like something. And she basically says, like, there's no way. Like, she says, Bruce is twice my size. You think I can grab him?
She called them like something with the C word. I don't remember what it was though.
Oh, yeah. They use that word a lot in this movie, too. Like, more, not like a lot, but like.
I enjoy it.
It was
I
so
love it.
funny.
I think that word should be sprinkled in everyday life more. Like everyone else in the world can do that. Why can't we Americans? I'm frowned upon when I do that.
One thing I do like, and I wanted to point out too, so in the 70s was really when police forces were not really starting, they were really embracing a lot more with visions and psychics and hypnosis. So a lot of programs were started to solve murders based on this, especially when it was something like, in this case, a serial killer that's killing kids that isn't being found. So a lot of people might watch this and be like, oh, why would the police try to find a clue through a little girl that is having dreams? But the reason they're doing that is because in the time period, that's what they were doing. That's what police forces were doing. A lot of programs were started, especially on hypnosis and different psychic things. So I really like that they embraced that in this, because now it's not quite as accepted, but back then it really was. And some programs still kind of live to this day, not quite as big, but they do see some really good like outcomes with different things like that. So that's why it was really followed in this movie, I think. But yeah, one of my favorite lines that Gwen says, because they're like trying to get her to be like, no, we need to know how you know this, because they're thinking like, oh, she has, maybe she knows the killer, like maybe it's her dad, or like they're thinking something along the lines of that. And she's like, no, it's just a dream. And then she says, and I'm just scared because sometimes my dreams are right. And then it was like a super dramatic scene. They did it very, very well. I love Gwen as a character. There's nothing I would change about her.
Yeah, she's a total badass for sure.
She's so cool. So then that scene happens.
And then Gwen stays the night at her friend's house, and then Finn stays up late watching a movie as the dad's passed out in the chair. And it looks like a freaky movie. It's like black and white, but then the tub is like blood, and the hand comes out and stuff. Yeah. He looks all freaked out,
and he's like, "Oh!" And
he's like holding his little spaceship thing that's throughout the whole movie.
Yep,
keeps throughout his comfort toy.
Yeah. Yep.
Throughout the movie, you can tell that Finn likes rockets, and he probably wants to do something with like astronaut or something like that, because he was like messing with a rocket at the ball field
in the very opening sequence.
And during class, there's a doodle of him, and he's got a bunch of rockets that he had drawn.
And he was playing with the rocket in the first scene too. He lights off that toy rocket.
Yes, yep.
And then Bruce sees it over his shoulder or whatever.
Yep.
But then he wakes up in the morning, and this is the scene that you were talking about earlier. Gwen's getting beat with her dad's beating her with the belt.
A very hard scene for me.
because the detectives came to his work and were asking him questions about
Mm-hmm.
what she was talking about, her dreams or whatever. And then this is where you find out that like her mother was seeing stuff too.
Yes.
And that's why he's all like freaked out about it. Cause like, I guess the mom was like seeing visions and stuff and they thought she was like crazy. And then I don't know, did she end up killing herself or?
Yeah, so the vision, you find out later that the visions tell her to commit suicide. And so she
Oh,
does.
okay.
One thing I do like is that the dad never questions Gwen's visions. He knows they're real. He does tell her they're not real. He does tell her they're dreams, but he knows they're real. And he knows that she has this stuff, but he's terrified as to what that's going to make of her and terrified as to what that future holds for her because he watched it happen to his wife.
Yeah.
I also think probably the way that the mother left them probably really scares him as well. It's probably like traumatic for his daughter to be so similar to the mother.
Yes. I mean, yeah, probably.
Yeah, he doesn't want the same thing to happen to her.
Right? He doesn't want to have to go through that again himself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's probably why he's kind of an alcoholic too.
Yeah.
Right.
So then she takes the vodka bottle and she's like, I'm going to break it. And then he's like, if you break that, I'm going to beat you even harder. And then she breaks it and then he starts beating her again with the belt. And Finn's just kind of watching, like all angry.
This scene is very. Like, I liked Gwen's character before, and I was very impressed with her actor.
Mm-hmm.
But after the scene, I was just like so impressed because to do the scene was incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like for a child actor her age.
She did it so well.
Yeah.
So well. And like there was so much emotion and it was so raw. And like the dad was emotional, she was emotional, obviously. Even Finney was like super emotional too, even though he didn't say a word.
Mm-hmm.
You could see it on his face. Like the actors in this movie are top tier. You could not have gotten better. I would not have switched any character in this movie. I would not have switched any actor. Everyone was top tier. There was no one that I was like, oh, you know, they could have done better, or, you know, oh, they're just, you know, they were just thrown in there. Like every single person was top tier and was like made for this role. And I don't know how they did that, but they did amazing on it.
Yeah. And this kind of cements like how close Finney and Gwen are too, because after they just kind of watch TV and she's kind of like laying on his shoulder, like you can tell that they're like close siblings.
Yeah.
You know?
And you can tell that's probably not the first time that this happened.
Yeah. And then it cuts to Robin getting taken by the grabber. He's like walking like it must be behind like a store or something. It looked like it was like behind a store and the van was
It's
there.
weird
and then
because it looks like it was like a
cuts.
meeting place. Like it looks like he was like meeting them.
So it is believed that Robin was on his way to get snacks for Finn to come over and tutor him.
Oh, he
later
must have
on.
been taking a shortcut home
And
from
he
the
had
store
to-
or something.
Yeah, that was on the way.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so sad.
Right, right.
I will say this movie does kind of jump and skip a little bit because, like, what you think is the next scene, she's like, oh, it's Friday again. And you're like, oh, it's been a week, you know? So sometimes it's hard to be like, okay, is it the next day? So, like, when they made plans to get tutored, I wasn't sure if it was that same day or not. So that's what, okay.
Yeah, it was kind of confusing that way because it felt like Gwen was having sleepovers every night.
It was a little confusing that way. And, like, honestly, it wasn't that big of a deal. And I think if you, like, once you realize what's going on when you watch it a second time, it doesn't affect the movie. But, like, the first time going through and really trying to, like, figure everything out, it was a little confusing because I'm like, okay, what's what here?
Yeah.
So then this is when you really see the dad, like, really caring for his kids because I'm assuming he's not drunk or at least somewhat sober because he gets a call and you can tell he's like really hurt and really emotional. And he says, hey, do you know a kid named Robin? And he can't pronounce the last name. And Finney's like, yeah, and he's one of my friends. Why? And like, you can see the dad's heartbreak.
That has to be really hard to tell your kid that one of their best friends is probably not coming home.
And I just love that they made him human, because I think that puts into perspective, especially when people who are abused come out and say, hey, I'm being abused. And people are like, oh, well, he's so nice. Well, yeah, because he's human, and we're all very fluid and we're very multifaceted. And just because he's nice and he has feelings, he's not like in the movies. Whereas in this movie, it really showed what true abusers, like, they are multifaceted, and he probably does feel bad after abusing his kids, but he still does it. And so that's the bottom line. But I really like that they put that in there. I think they do such a beautiful job. All of these characters are so just well done. I cannot stress that enough. These characters are so well done. But yeah, so then the cops come talk to Gwen, and the dad's like, what'd Gwen do this time? And he's like, no. They're like seeking Gwen out because it's obvious that they have no leads. They don't know where to go.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just grabbing these kids off the street and leaving no trace.
Yep. And before that, though, Gwen comes into Finn's room.
Oh, yes.
And then they're talking, and then Finn asks Gwen to do the dream thing. He's like, can you do the dream thing? And then she's like, well, it doesn't work like that. But then she goes into her room, and she's got a bunch of, like, religious stuff, and she's, like, praying to Jesus. She's like, come on, Jesus, show me.
I was like, oh, she has.
She hides it all in a dollhouse. Yeah. I adore that.
And then she just kind of like sneaks back into bed because the dad is like, go to bed.
Yeah, that was the moment. She looks terrified of him.
Yeah. Because at that point, he's probably drinking. So.
Yeah.
Right. It's well into the night.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, then the detectives come to the house again.
So that's when the detectives come to the house, and he's like, what'd she do this time? Like, I thought I...
But then you don't really see him be angry after that, because then after Finn gets taken, he, like, lightens up a bit, too.
Because I think he realizes the desperation of it, and, like, the situation where your kid is kidnapped, and the police have no leads, and there's nowhere else to turn to, but your daughter might be giving some hint. I think you kind of, like, be lenient on it. You know what I mean?
Give into it a little bit.
You become desperate. There's a lot of stories of parents, especially, or families of victims of kidnappings or whatever, that go do crazy, crazy things to find their loved ones. And, you get desperate. And I think that's kind of what happens here. And I like that they show that.
Yeah.
But it does cut to Finny. He's getting chased by bullies, and I really like this scene. It's like a montage almost. It's very lighthearted in a desperate way. Does that make sense?
It's kind of like brutal too, because
it's very brutal.
Well, they're beating up Finny really pretty good, and then Gwen just comes out of nowhere with a big rock and just like smashes one of the bullies in the head, and he's just like bleeding from the head. It's like, oh damn.
Yeah.
And then she gets kicked, and it's crazy.
I was like taking notes and like kind of saw she had a rock. I was like, okay, she's gonna hit him, da da da. And then I look up and he's just got like blood pouring from his face, and I was like, oh my goodness.
And of course she's like swearing at him, like, you dumb fuckers, blah blah blah.
And I will say too, like, it shows the character of the bullies, because like they kicked her, and like especially in the 70s, like they kicked a girl. Like this is how they view her. And, like, she doesn't, like, this is, like, the hippie era, too, so she's not going to act like a woman, act like a girl, which I love. But they're not going to treat her like a girl either. And, I think that it was, like, really crazy to me that they put that in there, but I do like that they put that in there.
And I also feel like they were going extra hard because Robin was kidnapped, and now it's, like, they're extra mad because Robin was, like, protecting Finn, and now he's gone, so then they're like, oh, there's no one to protect you now.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So then he's at school, and then this is where they're getting ready for the frog dissection, and he gets paired with his like crush or whatever.
And I did write down her name. Her name is Donna.
And then she's like, those guys are dumb. Yeah.
And she's actually really nice. Yeah. And he's like, what? Like,
I really like her.
And then after school, Gwen's like teasing him, like, oh, Donna,
and kissy. And this is when it gets like confusing for me, because she like leaves and he's like, where are you going? And I was like, yeah, where is she going? And she's like, it's Friday. And I was like, wait, didn't you just spend the night with what's her name?
Yeah, they're like skipping around.
I'm going to
kind of.
Sally's.
Yeah.
And they skip around a little bit, but like, yeah.
The timeline is a little.
Yeah. But I don't know how else they would do that without like putting a bunch of fluff in it. So I'm,
Yeah. Well,
I'm glad they did it this way instead of putting a bunch of fluff in it.
Yeah. So then Finn's walking home and he sees the grabber. He's got his black van and he drops like groceries and he's like, silly me. He's,
Yeah,
like,
he acts like
weird.
a clown. Yeah, and he's like, I am a part-time magician. You want to see a trick? And Finney's like, yeah, but you can tell he's still a little cautious.
Yeah. And he looks in the back and sees the black balloons and then he's like,
and
are
he
those black
immediately
balloons?
knows.
And then
Yeah, he immediately
that's when
knows.
he gets kidnapped.
Mm-hmm.
He like sprays him in the mouth with some sort of.
It prevents him from screaming.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. I don't know exactly what it was, but it prevented him from screaming.
It like knocked him out too, didn't it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But also, Finney had managed to cut the grabber pretty deep with his little rocket toy. Too.
Yep.
The grabber is very unhappy about it as he's dragging Finney down some stairs into his little dungeon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I wrote down the quote. He said, "I should snap your neck for what you did to my arm."
Yes.
So that kind of sets the mood for the tone here for like, this is a bad guy.
And I love the way he says it too.
Yeah.
Like he says it in kind of like a like I should snap your neck for what you did to my arm. Like I don't know, it's just like a.
He said it so like almost happily, but like in such a creepy manner.
Yes, it was very like, I hate to say clown-like because you know how I feel about clown. It's very clown-like, very mime-like.
Intimidating.
Yes.
Yeah.
The kidnapper calls him Johnny.
I wanted to talk about that, why he calls him Johnny.
I feel like that's a saying, isn't it? Like,
so actually, no, he calls him Johnny because he's quoting his own father.
Okay.
His name is John. The grabber's name is John.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wondered if it was something like that because when I was like, okay, so either his son's name is John, like he's mimicking something. I knew he was like he was reverting back to something, but I didn't know what he was reverting back to.
Right. I like how like deep this movie is. Like you watch it a second time and it's like, whoa.
Yeah, you don't really know the grabber's intentions, like, because it's like kind of creepy where he like brushes the hair out of his face and it's like kind of like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's creepy, but he doesn't like really touch him after, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
He doesn't.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know what he gets out of it, but
The mask that he wears.
The mask that he wears determines
it's like different
kind of like,
personalities.
yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And like it's part of the game. It's like, I don't know what the word is exactly what I'm trying to come up with here, but it's like different levels of the game.
Oh.
Different parts of his personality. Playing Naughty Boy.
Yeah,
Okay.
which is such a creepy.
So his dad
creepy
used to play
name
Naughty
for
Boy with
that.
him.
Oh, really?
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
His dad used to call him that and stuff, I assume.
There's so much lore in this.
To the grabber.
Yes. And I wish they would have gotten deeper into it just because I'm so interested in it. But I feel like, and so like I'm really anxious because I am going to read the book. So I'm really anxious to read the book and find out
I
more.
think the book would give us a lot of this as well.
But that is one thing that for me personally, and I hate to even say this because I don't want it to reflect on like other people's opinions on it, but that's one thing where the Black Phone does fall short for me because I am so into like the psychology of killers or the psychology of like kidnappers and stuff. I wish it would have went into that. But like that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what the story needed to be told. Like I could even go for like a sequel or like a prequel. I think a prequel would probably be better, but where it really digs into the psychology of this killer because he's so interesting to me. It's very like there's so much that you just know, like there's so much in there that like I know there's a reason he did that. I know there's a reason that he's giving scrambled eggs and a soda. Like
It's very
specific.
Finn centric. Like it's very like more.
Yes.
It focuses
It's
more on
more
the
about-
kids than it does on the grabber.
It's more focused on the kids, and I feel like that was the intention of the movie. So I'm trying not to like bash that at all, because it did very, very well with that.
But
I
it just
think
makes
for
you
me
want more.
personally.
Yeah.
Yes, for me personally, I would have enjoyed it more if it was centered on the killer, because that is just what I am personally more into.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was another thing too that happens at this part that I'd forgotten. I'd wrote in my notes, having to do with the mask and how it changes, and kind of thinking that this could be a sort of personality disorder.
Yeah.
Where he has like some sort of multiple personality thing going on. When Finn asks at the beginning if he's the one who killed the other boys,
Yes.
the grabber answers, no, that was someone else.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
So, psychology.
He keeps saying stuff like, oh, I'm gonna get you a soda, and like he's very loving, and I put something like talks like a loving dad, and he like brushes, he's like, I'm not gonna hurt you, and like it's really creepy. Like if I was in his position, that would not comfort me at all, but like I think it was supposed to be comforting. But you can tell he's very like not knowledgeable of what he's put. Like, I know you're scared, but don't be scared. Like, that's not going to help anything. The grabber thinks he's helping the situation. I was really worried that it was going to be like very centered on multiple personality or some form of DID, dissociative personality disorder type, because they never get it right and they always make it very badly. So I was very concerned when I first saw that the mask had changed, that this is what this was going to be about, and I was very glad that they didn't focus on that part. So I love I think the dad personality was my favorite personality, and I wish they would have dug into that more.
Sort of like a Psycho kind of thing, you know, like the movie Psycho, impersonating the mom.
Yeah.
Like sort of,
Yeah.
in this case, the father.
Yeah. And then the phone starts ringing.
You hear a phone upstairs, and then the grabber goes upstairs, and he's like, I'm going to get you soda. I got something to take care of, but I'll be back with that soda. And then he goes upstairs and closes the door behind him.
And he like boops him.
Yeah.
I'm going to be back with that soda. And he boops him in the shoulder. Like,
yeah, it's
such
very
a cutie.
creepy.
Like,
yeah.
But like, you could see an actual father and son doing this and it not being creepy. And I think that was his intention.
Trying to gain his trust a little.
I don't know.
It really reminded me of someone that was like, oh, I'm going to like raise this child. Or like, you know, like this is like.
Gives you vibes like that, yeah.
Like he had compassion for him.
Then he hears the phone. He's looking around in the basement, and then he hears the phone.
Then, yeah, the phone. I forgot the phone was ringing upstairs, yeah.
Yeah.
There's only a toilet with no lid, which I put that as a marker because there's no lid on the toilet because he only kidnaps boys.
Oh.
And then there's a black phone with a cut wire, but it starts. Does it start ringing yet? I don't have that yet.
No, I don't think it rings. It cuts to Gwen, and she gets a call from her dad, and then she's at her friend's house.
Yeah,
she gets the call that Finn's missing. She like runs home.
She just runs. Doesn't tell anyone where she's going. The front door is wide open.
Yep. And
That's
there's like
her
a bunch
brother.
of police on her street and in front of her house and stuff, and they're looking for him. And then Finney hears the phone for the first time.
So, yeah, and then it's, of course, Bruce on the phone, and Bruce explains that none of the other boys were able to hear the phone ring until Finney.
Yeah.
But the grabber can too, but he chooses to ignore it. He pretends it's not ringing.
Yeah.
He denies. And at first, of course, so Bruce doesn't remember his own name either as soon as Finn answers the phone. And Finney is the one who reminds him his name is Bruce. And at that point, Bruce also remembers, your arm is mint. You almost had me.
Yeah, and he just keeps saying that like over and over again. He's like, you almost had me.
It's like his one, like, anchor to the real world.
Yeah, you can kind of tell that they aren't fully connected to the real world anymore. They like are kind of here, but they don't have all their memories. They say their name's the first to go. This is also right before this happens. The kidnapper was in there when the phone rang. The kidnapper says, oh, sometimes it rings, but it's the electricity. Ooh, creepy. And he just does that little shiver thing.
Yeah, and then he says
And
like,
he tells him the room's soundproof and he lets it slip that there's a man upstairs because Finney is really good at reading people. I like to point that out. He's very good at reading people, and he said something about, oh, I'm meeting someone, he, and Finn says, oh, he, so you're meeting a him? And the guy's like, oh man, this, you know, you can kind of tell, like, the grabber's like, oh, this kid's smart, I gotta be careful with what I say.
Mm-hmm.
And then they talk about something, but I did write down this quote, like, he says, I won't do anything you won't like.
Which is really creepy.
And it really goes back to which is what Stevie was talking about with, like, the different personalities, because he's wearing a different mask this time. This one's with the wide smile. And then a creaking wakes him up. The guy wakes him up and he's like, I was just watching you. I just wanted to look at you.
Oh yeah, the phone's like flexing, and he's like, "Stop!"
And the phone's like flexing, and because it's like breathing or like a heartbeat. I couldn't quite tell which one it was.
Yeah,
I think it was kind of like breathing.
Yeah.
Like it seemed to inhale and exhale.
Yeah.
One thing too, with the grabber mask, him now wearing the smile. I think part of this part is like him trying to befriend. This is like, you know, the honeymoon stage in an abusive relationship sort of thing.
Yeah.
And the next time he shows there's that frown mask, but he doesn't reveal it until Finney does something wrong.
Yeah.
Because that's when the game begins.
Yep.
I will say too, there's two different things. So when he was watching him, he took off the top part of the mask and just had the wide grin.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
So he's always wearing some part of the mask, but you know, and then he said, "Well, I wanted to watch you," and so I don't know if that's why he took off the top part of the mask, because even though he can see very clearly out of the mask, I think it was just to focus more on the eyes.
Yeah. So after the conversation with Bruce that he has with Bruce,
because Bruce tells him about the dirt section.
Oh yeah, he tells him to keep digging or whatever.
Yep.
And try to get to the foundation.
Yep.
And then it's the little montage of like Bruce growing up, and then
with little home videos of baby Bruce.
You see him getting kidnapped. Then Finn's like yelling at the door or whatever, and you realize that it's like Gwen's dream. It's like a vision that Gwen is having while she's sleeping.
Yep.
And then she's like riding her bike around the neighborhood trying to find
it.
Thing, yeah. And then as Finney's like digging the basement up, and then they have like the school assembly where they like must be talking about the kidnappings. Then the grabber brings Finn food, and then this is where he leaves the door open, and he's like gonna go up the stairs, and then the phone rings again, and he goes over, and then that's when Billy the paper boy is on the other end of the line.
Said it's a trap.
He tells him it's a trap, yeah.
And this is something that really got me. Billy answered the phone. He left the door. The door's open, and he left. And so he's like, I can escape. And then the phone rings and he's like, I got to answer the phone. And he like drops everything, like runs from the door, answers the phone. Billy tells him, oh my gosh, you know, it's a trap. Like he's going to beat you with a belt is what he tells him. Like he goes into very great detail. Is this when he tells him about Naughty Boy?
No, I think that's later on.
Okay.
Because then he kind of goes up the stairs and then you see the grabber with like his shirt off, and he's got the belt in his hand, and he's like waiting for Finn to come up.
I don't remember. I think he did explain Naughty Boy here.
Does he?
This is when Naughty Boy, because he says this is, you know,
he's waiting for you to play the game, basically.
Yeah.
He can't play the game if you don't like do something bad. He can't win if you don't play. That's what he was saying.
He can't win if you don't play. I think what was weird for me is if the phone ringing was so desperate to bring him from what he thought was safety, why did he then try to go back up the stairs?
Yeah, after he tells him. I think he just wanted to scope it out a little bit, maybe.
Testing the waters a little.
Because he doesn't go all the way up. He just goes up a little bit and then goes back down.
I wonder if he heard him breathing, the grabber, because he was up there. He was like
yeah, that was a creepy part.
Yeah. Yeah, so
the shirtless.
He couldn't see anything, right? He just like walked up there.
I think he just walked up and listened.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't even think he looked, because if he would have looked, then the grabber would have seen him. Yeah. So
yeah,
he must have just went up halfway.
Was the door
kind of
open?
Listened, and then the door was open. Yeah.
Okay, so that's what got me, was I couldn't tell if the door was open or not.
Yeah.
Or I couldn't tell like how far he went up. That part was kind of confusing to me, just because like I was like, wouldn't I feel like the grabber would know when he went up the stairs? But I think the
Yeah.
grabber probably knew he went up the stairs, but he couldn't do anything until he actually went up the stairs.
He didn't actually try to leave.
He didn't
yeah.
try to leave, so he didn't break the rules.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is where Billy tells him about the wire that's in the wall or whatever. He tells him there's a loose wire in the wall, and then Finn he tries to hook it to the window to go up there, and then which is kind of a smart idea. He takes the rug and puts the wire through the rug, and it loops through the window, and then he goes up
It
there.
magics itself through. You would never be able to do that in real life.
I would never have thought of that.
The rug part was brilliant. That I think would have worked. But then it magically goes through the grate and then loops back around.
Yeah, I was watching this with my dad, and he's like, "There's no way that would happen."
Yeah, I was like, I would never get that lucky.
I would never even think about that though, like grabbing the rug and he's pretty smart. He's a smart kid for sure.
He's very, very bright.
So then he takes it and he ties the loop, and he's like trying to get up to the window, and then the grate or whatever, like the metal grate, like falls.
Bars?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which the grabber never notices, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah, and like, I don't know, I probably would have kept that shit and tried to beat the grabber with it.
Yeah.
I don't know where it went.
Yeah.
It went in the hole.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Later on it did.
It's probably too heavy.
That's
It might have
right.
been too heavy for him to like actually like.
Yeah.
beat it
I
with.
think that's where he hid it, was the hole.
And then Gwen is falling asleep in school, and then she has she goes to the nurse's office to sleep.
Because the
teacher's like, "Oh, you poor child."
It reminds me
You're
of,
probably having a rough time there, girl.
yeah, there was a book I read about a boy whose mom was killed, and then then a new teacher comes to school and like gives him a test, and he's in like second grade, and he just draws a picture on it, and she's like, "What is this?" And he's like, "Well, my other teachers let me do that." And it's like, because his mom, it was like a smaller town, and because his mom died, they like let him just like pass. They're like, "Oh, your mom's dead, like just pass the class." Like,
Oh
and this teacher's like, "No," and like got him, where he needed to be. But it just reminded me of that. Like, they're like, "Oh, honey, it's fine. Your brother's been kidnapped. We'll let you sleep in class. Go to the nurse's office so you have a comfier
Right.
place to sleep."
And then she kind of has the dream about Billy or whatever.
Yep.
It's kind of like the same thing that it showed with Bruce, where he's like kind of a montage of Billy, and then he's delivering papers, and he gets taken by the grabber.
And his poor dog.
Yeah. Each dream gives her a little bit more of a clue as to where he's hiding them.
Yeah.
And then Gwen cut back to the house. Dad's drinking. And she says, "Dad, can I ask you a question?" He's like, "Yeah, honey, sit down." And he's been drinking, and she's like, "Oh, crap." And she's like, "You can't get mad." And, and you can tell she's very anxious. The point of, like, you can tell that these kids have been abused, and, like, you can tell that they are very much exposed to their father's drinking, and they kind of know what to do and not to do. And she knows she's about to do something that's going to piss him off, but she knows she needs to do it. So she asked her dad about her dreams. And that's when they have a big heart to heart, and we find out that her mom committed suicide because of her mom's dreams. And he says something about, your mom was a touched soul, and she had like special powers, and like she had a gift. And he says all this stuff, and like you can tell that he really truly loved his wife and loved their mom, and he had so much love for the whole family even. But after she committed suicide, I think it really messed with him. Because the dreams told her to commit suicide. So I think when his daughter started showing signs, like Stevie said earlier, I mean, that's gotta mess you up a little bit. Like, you're kind of like history repeating itself, and I don't know if you'd want to go through that again.
Yeah.
Because Gwen says something about loving her mother the way she was. And then she says something about, well, my dreams can help me find Finney. And then immediately it cuts to the dad's driving the daughter around, which I thought was funny because A, he's been drinking, and B, he's like, all right, we'll do it for the son. Like,
Yeah.
we'll do it to find the kid. So now we meet Max, because then they're doing like a door-to-door, just kind of...
Is that what it is? Is that why
Yeah.
they find him?
Yeah, they're just doing a door-to-door...
Door-to-door search.
Yeah, they just...
Search party.
No, it's just a... Not surveillance, a door-to-door... Huh. Anyway, they just knock on the door and say, hey, this is what's going on. Do you know anything? And Max is like, do I know anything? Come on in, officers.
He's all coked out.
And, like, you can tell he's a little crazy, but, like, he has... You know that meme that's, like, the guy that's, like, insane and he's got the board with all the strings going places?
Oh, that
Yeah.
That is Max.
That's Charlie Day
Okay.
in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, the
Yes.
meme.
That is what Max is, and he's like going through. He's like, all right, so you know he has to have a garage because he's kidnapping these kids, and he's like talking all this stuff. And he's saying he's got a garage, he's got to have a car, he's got to have this, he has to live in this area. So he's like pinpointed everything, and the cops are like, okay, this man's crazy. And he's like, Max, what's your job? Oh, well, I forget where he says. He's from down somewhere. I just moved up here because I lost my job and I'm just staying with my brother right now. And
Yeah, he said he was between jobs.
he's between
like,
jobs
that sounded
right now.
better.
Yeah, he's between jobs right now. Like, this dude was coked up and got fired. We all know what happened. I love Max. He's so good. Like, he's such a good, fun character. I wish they had a little bit more of him. Like, he was, like, going off, and he said something about our investigation. Like, he's part of the team cop. Like, he's part of the detectives. And then...
Cops, of course, don't take him seriously.
No. And they're like, okay, buddy, you might want to clean up before your brother gets home. And they look at the coffee table, and there's just lines of Coke. And he's like, oh, shit. Damn it.
So
God
stupid,
damn it,
and then he just
I'm
starts
so
snorting
stupid. And then he's like, he sits on the couch
and spells another line.
Oh,
And
God.
when they show Max, I said to Stevie and Mitch, Max's brother's the grabber. I was like, I'm calling it right now. Max's brother's a grabber. Then he sits down, does Coke, and it goes down to the basement where Finney
The camera
is.
like pans through the floor to the
It's
basement.
such a
and
good,
it's like,
it's so good.
I love
And I was like, I called it. They were like trying not to be like, they were like, okay, like trying not to spoil it for me. Thank you guys.
We were both just silent because we'd both seen the movie.
Yeah, they were both like so silent, and I was just like, I know it's right. I know I'm right.
Yeah.
Yeah, brother's got everything mapped out.
Yeah, this is where Finn wakes up and he sees the ghost of the boy like floating in the air, and he's got his neck slit. And then that's where it's where he
I
meets
have-
Griffin.
I have the grabber has a sad face and he's gonna let him go. And then the wakes up to Drips.
Oh yeah. This is the part where he's waiting in the shadow and he asks Finn what his name is, and Finney replies Taylor.
Taylor Mullen.
Yeah, and then the grabber gets angry because this is basically the real beginning of
yeah.
Naughty Boy.
Yeah.
And then he reveals the mask that with the frown on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's actually the first time Finney sees that mask.
Yes.
So that's the reveal.
Okay. So he said, and like, my heart broke at this point because like he says he was gonna let Finney go. He was like, I really thought I was gonna let you go. I don't know what to do. Things have changed. Like, he was really like conflicted within himself, and you can hear that. And Finney was like trying to like play on that and was like, well, you can let me go, you can blindfold me and just drop me off and I'll just walk home and I won't tell anyone, and just, like, and it'll be like nothing happened and you won't get in trouble. And he's like, I might do that. What's your name? And then Finney's like, I fucked up. But I really don't think that he would have let him go.
I
I
highly
think
doubt
he was
it.
just messing with him, to be honest.
I think he was messing with him. I think he would have
Yeah.
been. I think it would have went.
Because he knew
either
he was
way.
gonna lie. He knew he was gonna lie about his name because all the other boys have done that. So that's
Yeah.
like, I think that was part of the game. Was like
It was part of the
he
game. I
asks
think
someone his name is, he lies about it, and then he
Yeah.
basically just gets mad that he lies, and then he
Mhm.
he goes upstairs, leaves the door open again, and then he's
Yes.
just waiting for him to play the game.
hmm
So, and then this is when he gets the call.
Yeah. Finney just like goes into depression
Mhm.
and falls asleep, and he wakes up
Yeah.
to drips. And I was like, "It's blood. There's blood. What's blood dripping?"
This is probably like
and
the
he's
most graphic thing we see.
This is like the
Like-
most graphic. Yep, I think. And then it like pans around the room, and I'm like, "There's gonna be a jump scare," so I'm just like writing, and then it like the music's like getting more intense, and then it like goes whoop, like in a video game. You know how the video games do those kind of jump scares?
Mhm.
That's what it reminded me of. And there's just like a body floating. I don't know which kid it was either.
It was Griffin, I think.
Oh, it was Griffin.
Yeah, because then
Okay.
that's when he calls.
Okay. So there's a body floating, and it just like points to the phone. And then Griffin calls and keeps like saying like he isn't sleeping, Finney. And this is when they really talk about the naughty boy game.
Yeah, and he tells him he doesn't have much time. He's like, "You don't have much
Yeah.
time," and he just
Because
keeps
he's not
saying that
sleeping.
over and
He's
over
not
again.
sleeping. You don't have much time. Like the less he sleeps, the less in control he is, which is like
Yeah.
normal. But like he keeps it under wraps, but he's not sleeping, so he's gonna lose it, and you're gonna.
Finn says, "Well, why hasn't he killed me yet?" And then that's when he says, "Because you haven't played the game. You got to play the
Yeah.
game so he can go to the next step."
Yeah,
And then he says, "Like, what does he
he
say?"
really
Says
likes
something
the
like
part after.
Yeah, he really likes the next part. or
The
something
after
like
part.
that.
And I don't know if that was the killing. I don't know what they were really alluding to.
Mhm.
I think they left that open for a reason.
Yeah, and this is when he tells him the grabber hasn't been sleeping. He's sleeping right now upstairs. He fell asleep. The front door is locked by my bike lock that he took from me. And he said he wrote the combination on the wall, but he can't remember which order the combination's in. Because Finney finds it. Finney finds the numbers.
I wanted to remember.
And he's like,
if I
"Well, what
wrote-
order is it in?" And then he
It's
says,
two,
"I don't remember."
23317.
Yeah.
I don't know why I have that memorized. Like,
No, there was one time we were talking about something. She goes 23317. I said, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "It's the combination lock." I was like, "Can you get more creepy?" I was like, "We're not even
I have
talking
a
about the
weird
black
thing,
phone."
like with like I have the weird memorization thing. Like things
Oh.
just engrave themselves in my head. But yeah, no, like for real. I just have a weird memorization thing. Like I from high school had to learn the entire To Be or Not to Be soliloquy from Shakespeare. I think it was Hamlet, and I can still recite it perfectly to this day.
And you can tell when she's bored because it will just pop out of her mouth, and
It'll just
it's
come
so
out.
funny.
It was like late at night. Mickey and I were on our way back, my sister, from like somewhere wherever downstate maybe or something. It's late. It's like 11. It's dark out. It's dead quiet, and all of a sudden I started reciting it to like just wake myself up. And she thinks I'm like doing some kind of a satanic ritual, and she starts praying. She thought I was going to try and kill us or something.
Oh my god.
And I get it. It sounds kind of creepy. Anyway, back to the movie.
Oh my god.
Where were we? The combination lock. 23317, that's right.
So he sneaks upstairs and he's like trying the combination. He gets it open and then he makes a noise and the dog starts barking, wakes up the grabber.
I did put wouldn't having a combination lock on the inside of the door, wouldn't the brother find that strange? I guess he
I
just
think
puts
he
it
just-
on there when the brother's
He
out.
must just put it at night, yeah. He must put it on
When
at
the
night
brother's
because then that's when he's trying to play the game.
Yeah.
But like, what if the brother like wakes up and wants a glass of water or something,
Yeah,
and then
like-
just like comes in and sees him with the creepy mask on and like no shirt with a belt and like
And that's why
That's
he
so
keeps saying
weird.
stuff like things are complicated. Because so like when the phone rang, that's when his brother called to be like, "Hey, I have nowhere to go. I need somewhere
Yeah,
place to
yeah.
stay."
Just shows up with like one extra pair of clothes and like this entire board. Like his own investigation.
yeah.
Yeah,
You don't mind if I put
That's-
this up in the living room, do ya?
It's almost kind of unbelievable. Like, that's the part that kind of like, I wish the brother just wasn't in it because that makes it kind of unbelievable for me, anyways. Because it's like,
I get that.
how would, I don't know. It doesn't make any sense.
He
Like,
was
you
like,
get up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night or something, and like, he could
This
have
actually
seen it.
happens a lot in criminal cases.
Really?
So if you dig deep in like the first one that comes to mind that is comparable, John Wayne Gacy. He had people living in his home. There's a lot of serial killers that killed in their home that had people living in their home, and they just never knew it.
I think Bruce would notice if I started doing some sketchy shit.
It's like such a like small house too, though. Like,
Okay, so he immediately, one thing I will say, I'm going to wait to say it because it is a spoiler and I just want to wait, but remind me to say the thing, okay?
okay.
Remind me to say the thing when we get to the end.
All right.
Nothing. Gotcha.
So where were we? Finn gets out of the house. The grabber, which he grabs his van, which I don't know. Instead of just chasing after him, he like gets in his van and like chases
And, like,
Finny down the
pulls it out of
street
the
in
garage.
the van. Yeah.
He almost like hit the kid with it.
Yeah. And then Finney's yelling for help, and he's like holding Finney's mouth on the ground, and he's like, "Don't speak, or I'll strangle you with your intestines." Or
He's
something
got
like
a
that.
knife up to his throat.
I'll gut you like a pig and then strangle you
Yeah,
with your
this is like the most intense scene in the whole movie, I think.
You know, like he's got that whole ass van out there, pulls it into someone's driveway to try, like attempt to hit this child, and when he tackles the kid to the ground, Finney, a couple of porch lights turn on because they'd heard yelling and such.
Mhm.
Do these people not notice the van
Yeah,
pulled on someone's lawn?
Yeah.
and the van is also just like, I noticed like later in the movie when they catch him, the van's just parked in the, like, he doesn't have like a garage or anything. It's just parked in his driveway, like noticeable. I mean, I guess lots of people have vans and stuff, but it's like it's a black
It's a very
van.
distinctive van.
Yeah,
And
and
it
if the
has, like,
cops would have went to the
abracadabra or whatever
house,
on it.
if the cops would have went to the
Like
house,
neighbors should have
like,
seen him bringing black balloons around
Well, no,
to his van.
Yeah.
He has a garage that he pulls into, but the reason it wasn't was because he was unloading all that stuff.
Mm.
gotcha. Gotcha.
I see.
I do want to point out when he says that, like, he puts a knife to his throat and was like, if you scream now. My advice, and I'm not saying follow it, I'm just saying this is my advice and something that I would personally do. If you are ever in this situation, go ahead and scream. Because worst case scenario, they actually do it, which is horrible, but they will get caught. But they're probably going to kill you anyway. Okay? So go ahead and scream, because that way they're going to get caught at least. Okay? But also,
I don't know if I would follow that advice, but
Okay,
I don't think I could do it.
I don't think I would do it
definitely.
either.
Always fight back. Always fight back. In the long, because
I mean, I'd fight back, but
9
I don't
times
know
out
if
of
I'd do
10
that.
Yeah, but I would just be thinking, like, if he brings me back to the basement and doesn't kill me, then I would have another try at like getting out some other way instead of like
okay,
Yeah.
But think
screaming
about
when
it.
I have a knife
he's
to my
logical
neck.
enough. He's logical enough that that's just an open threat, because he knows if you scream, someone's going to come out and he's going to have to run. He's not going to have time to kill you.
Oh yeah, I mean, he had that knife like on his neck though. He could have just slit his throat and
He
ran.
just slits it and hits the artery there.
Mm.
Good night.
Yeah. I don't know. I'd definitely scream, or at least kick him or something.
You're crazy.
Yeah,
Definitely,
you're
always,
crazy for
always
that
fight
one.
back. So like,
Oh
I
shit!
don't know. I just watch way too many shows where they'll be like, "Don't scream," and then they do, and guess what? They're the ones that survive, or at least, at the very least, are the ones that break the case every time. From my experience of watching crime shows 24/7. So that is
Love
my
that. Educational.
that is my educational advice. But I do realize too, like when you're in that situation, that might be difficult.
So after Finney gets caught, it's the part where Gwen is like cussing out Jesus. She's like, Jesus, what the fuck? She's like, why aren't you showing me anything? Blah, blah, blah. Like, she's not having dreams or whatever. She's like cussing Jesus out.
She's like, the one time you do give me a dream, it doesn't give me anything.
She's like, are you even real?
Yeah, she has like I don't even know what to call it. She's just like just a religious crisis. She's like, unless you're not real. I was like, oh my goodness, this poor child. She's way too young to be having one of these crises.
Right? She's way too young to be saying the C word and shit, though.
Right? And then we meet Vance Hopper.
I love Vance Hopper.
Oh, his hair.
Gwen is my favorite character, but Vance Hopper is my favorite character, okay?
Talk about his hair? God.
So Finn gets another call. He answers the phone, and it's Vance Hopper. And he's like...
Pinball Vance, they also call him.
Yep. Like, this is it, fucker, or something like that.
Yeah, he's like...
It's over now, or something.
This is it, motherfucker. This is the end to your pathetic little life, or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
And then it's kind of like a flashback, but then you find out it's Gwen, like another one of Gwen's dreams.
Do you notice that Finney is in the dream?
Yeah, he's in the background, yeah. Because he's like, okay, so Vance is playing pinball, and then...
He's about to get the high score, man.
He's about to get the high score, and another kid, like, gets shoved into the pinball machine and, like, messes up his game, so he starts beating the crap out of the kid, or the other kid pulls a switchblade and he starts beating up the kid, and then he's got the kid on the ground and he cuts the
7741.
Yep, he cuts the house number into his arm, and then he gets escorted out by the cops, and Finney's actually the one holding the door open for the cops to bring him outside to the cop car.
Yo.
And then...
In all the times I've seen this movie, how have I not noticed Finney was there?
You didn't notice?
No,
so
I'm not observant.
Finney was in the background of the fight, first off.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I first saw him. And then I didn't realize he had held the door open for the cops, because that's when I noticed Gwen walking into the scene.
I was looking at Vance and his luscious hair.
His luscious hair.
Bring that hair back, for real. I want to see it.
It reminds me of the bully from Stranger Things. What's his name?
Billy.
Billy, yeah. Billy, yeah. Reminds me of
Yes. Oh, I love him.
Billy.
That hair. Oh my God. I just love a guy with like longer hair.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice. It looks, I don't know. It looks very nice to me.
Yes.
It adds character. It's nice. I like short hair too. Don't get me wrong. But I just respect a guy with some, long, definitely hairsprayed, done up hair. Like, they put effort in that.
If they spend more time on their hair than I do, I respect it.
Yo, exactly.
So then Gwen's in the back of the cop car with Vance in the dream, and they like pull up to the house that Finn is kidnapped in.
And I like that it shows how, like, it shows Vance talking to Finney through the radio.
Yep.
But it's also like Gwen is having her dream with Vance, but she can't talk to Finney.
Yeah.
Because she's like yelling, but you can't hear her. You can see that she's yelling, but you can't hear her. And then it'll switch to where you can't hear Finney, but you can hear like Gwen and Vance having a conversation.
Yep. And I thought it was weird how they give her the house number, but it's not the actual house that Finney's in. It's the house across the street.
Because she's not following Finney, she's following the boys.
Oh, yeah.
And that's
where they're buried.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. So, Vance tells Finney about the wall, the weak wall. He's like, I did a bunch of damages to the house, and
yeah, he was like bragging, like that man had to spend a lot of money on me, and I was done.
He tells him that the wall is weak over by it was like kind of by the toilet or whatever.
Yeah.
And that there's a freezer behind it, and he tells him to break out the wall and then undo the panel on the back of the freezer.
Yep.
So then Finney does that. He grabs the back of the toilet, he breaks out the wall, and he's kind of clever. He takes apart the toilet lever and like finds one of the O-rings on the
Mhm.
lever and uses it as a screw, undoes the panel, and then he gets in the freezer, but he realizes he can't open the door because it's like a
It's
huge,
one of
like,
those locking
industrial
freezers.
style freezer. Yeah.
Because at first I was like, oh, this will work because like in the set, so like nowadays you couldn't really do it because they make it to where it auto locks, so it's like hard to get out.
Yeah.
But like back in the 70s, like they didn't have that to where it sealed shut, so he would have been able to get out. But then it panned back to the type of freezer it was, and I was like, oh, it's one of those.
Yeah.
So he was.
And
not
this is
breaking
where
out
he
of that
just
thing.
like breaks down and starts crying.
I felt so bad for him because like
Yeah.
he tried everything, and
It's
like what are you gonna do?
It's like a no hope. Like,
Yeah.
cry.
This is the first moment that he's like letting himself be vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's like, I'm done.
But then as soon as the phone rings, he goes and picks it up, and then it's Robin.
Robin.
His best
And he
friend.
knows right away that it's Robin, and then Robin's like, "Stop crying," and he's like, "I'm not crying. What are you talking about?"
He's
Like,
like, I know you're crying. I'm there.
trying to act
And I like that
cool.
Robin gives him a pep talk. No one else has that
Yeah.
connection. But I think part of that is because they've all been dead for so long, they're losing their connection to the world. But Robin has it. Robin still remembers Finney. He still remembers what they've talked about. Like, he's still connected to the world.
Yeah, because it's been less time since he's died.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he teaches them to put the dirt in the phone. He tells them to put the dirt in the receiver of the phone, and then he teaches them how to like step back, step
Punch it.
forward, step back, and then
I loved that scene.
Yeah, and he's like kind of training him.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then he tells him that it's the last call. Like he's like, because Finn's like, "Am I going to be able to talk to you again?" And he said, "Nope,
Finney
this is the
realizes
last
he's gonna
call,
have
man."
to like, if I pack it full of dirt, I'm not gonna be able to talk to you.
Yeah,
And he's like, nope, this is the last one. And my heart broke. I was so sad.
yeah. And you could tell they're like really good friends because he's like, "I'm gonna miss you," and
Yeah.
it's pretty sad. So then he hangs up the phone, and then is this where the brother finds it?
Nope. This is when, so then it cuts to, he's looking outside and it's raining. And then Gwenny is riding her bike in the rain, looking for the house. Cause she's like, I've seen this house. I know what house number it is. And she's just like going through neighborhoods trying to find what house it is.
Okay, yeah.
So then she finds it and
Yeah,
she
'cause
immediately,
all the dead boys come up in front of her, and she gets scared and falls off her bike.
mm-hmm.
And then she races home to call the detectives.
Yep. And it's in her little keepsake box of her dollhouse with all of her religious things of her seances. So she calls the detectives. The detectives make a mad search. They immediately said the girl called. She has a lead. We're going. So then Max does a coke line, and he's like standing. He's like sitting there. He does the coke, and like you can tell it's about to hit. And he's staring at the map, and you can see it slowly dawning on him. Because he made a comment about it. He has to be in this section, and he like circled the section where the house he's living in, his brother's house, is.
Mm-hmm.
And like it's slowly dawning on him, like, oh my god. And this is the thing, okay? So I remembered. You should be proud of me. That he gets up and he goes immediately to the basement door. So one thing that's really big with serial killers that kill with a home with people in it, they usually have a space that they don't allow anyone to be. And like they are in charge of their home. They are very manipulative. They are very usually abusive. And so they will say, they'll be like, this is my space. You can't go in there. And so he was probably like, hey, this is my space. Don't go in there. So Max immediately knew that that's where he would be keeping the boys if he was keeping the boys.
Yeah, he said, I knew he was hiding something down here from me.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and that was kind of the point I wanted to make about like, that's one way that they kind of get away with it is because they usually have a spot and they have usually control of their household to where, like in this case, he had control in a way where he could say, this is my house. You are living here because I'm being nice. You need to follow my rules. And this is my rule. And I'm letting you live here rent free. So, So he
goes in the basement and finds Finn.
yes.
And then he's like, whoa, whoa. And then he's like, instead of just being like, here, get on out of here, he's like,
Yeah.
you want to find out, you want to hear how I found you?
Found you?
And stuff like that. And then,
And like Finney's like, no! And like, because he sees and that's when you see the grabber come up.
yeah, the grabber's
with an
right
axe.
behind him.
That
And
was
then
one of the
smashes him in the head.
very CGI. But you know what? That's fine. That's fine. Like it was a total. I can kind of relate to Max's reaction, to be honest. Like,
he's also coked up, so
yeah, he is coked up, but I cannot relate to that. So like,
so he's like,
but I can relate to the fact of like just being a crime junkie and like finally figuring something out instead of acting rationally and being like, "Oh, you are a victim. Let me save you." Being like, "Oh my gosh, I figured it out." And that's kind of what Max was like. Do you want to know how I did it? This is how I found you. And Max, and like, no, I just want to get out of this basement, please.
And then he dies.
Axe to the head, man. Brutal.
And he's like, why did you make me do that? He's like, he was, what did he say? He's like, he's a dumbass.
He was an idiot, but he was my idiot.
Yeah, he's
maybe
an idiot.
dumbass, but he was.
He said
he was
idiot.
something. Yeah, he was an idiot, but he was
You're
my
right.
idiot.
Yeah. And then this is like the final showdown.
This is when the cops are in the house. They're in the 741 house, and they
Yep.
find it empty.
Yep.
And they're like, "It's
This isn't
empty.
the
What's
house."
going on?"
Yeah.
Then it cuts back to Finney makes the grabber fall in the hole, and it breaks his ankles because that's what he put the grate in the hole.
Yeah. Well, the grabber says, usually I like to, use a knife. Or he says,
use a knife.
use a
I
knife.
usually like to use a knife. Yes.
But he said, I'm going to make it real slow. And then that's when he calls the dog down.
Yes.
He calls the dog
Yes.
down. And then he like
Mm-hmm.
ties the dog up. And then that's when Finney runs away. And he runs. And then the grabber runs after him. He pulls the cord. It trips the grabber into the hole. And he like
Mhm.
snaps his ankle on the grate that's in the hole.
Mhm.
And then that's when Finney starts like whacking him with the phone.
Mhm.
And then the grabber gets him, kind of. Right? He gets him in the hole with him, and he's like kind of grabbing him, and then he starts whacking him even more, and then he grabs the cord and the phone cord, wraps it around his neck, and then
He makes the mask fall off too. And do you notice how he reacts when the
that's
mask-
why. Yeah.
when the mask falls off?
Because he grabs him and then he rips the mask off and then he
Mhm.
lets him go because he like freaks out that he dropped the mask.
He does
that
not want
ripped
that
the
mask off.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with like, oh, I don't want him to see who I am. I mean, kind of, but it's more like psychologically.
It's more for
Yeah.
the person.
Like, he took my
Like,
face
oh, I don't
off
want him to
kinda
be able
thing.
to identify me. It's like, oh, he took my identity.
He acts as if losing the mask is like painful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like he just like Finn just ripped his face off.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Finn holds the phone up to his ear and then all the dead kids talk to him.
Yeah.
They're
He's
like,
this is your last.
we can't kill you, so Finn's gonna do it for us. And then he's like,
yeah.
and then
He snaps his neck, basically.
Bruce says his arm is mint, and then he snaps his neck.
Yeah, they all
with
say
the
their
cord.
catchphrase.
Yeah. This is it, fucker.
Yeah, it's so funny that you wouldn't think their catchphrase would fit there, but it all fits. Like, their catchphrase just all fits.
Yeah. So then the grabber's dead. Finn goes and grabs one of the steaks
steaks.
from the freezer and throws it to the dog, and then he walks upstairs, walks out, and then
Very calmly.
yeah, and all the cops are all confused. They're like, or they find the basement, and then they go down, and then they find all the dead
Yeah.
bodies.
Because they were about to leave. They're like, oh, shit,
Yeah.
this isn't the house. And then the cop looks and goes, there's a fridge in
basement
front
there.
of the door. And he's like, there's a basement. And they're like, oh, shit.
Yeah,
And they walk down, and you're like, okay. Like, immediately I knew it was different stairs, so I knew that it wasn't where Finney was.
Mhm.
Because they turned. And so they go down in the basement, and there were 5 graves, and one dug one. He had pre-dug the grave.
yeah. And then you see Gwen outside, and Finn comes out, and yeah.
Yep.
They're all reunited, and then the dad comes and he's like, "I'm so sorry," and then
Yeah. And that's when this relays back. So the kids are like in shock, and like most of the time when your abuser like apologizes or whatever, and like I really think he meant it. Like I think it was like heartfelt. Like that should mean something, and there was no emotion. They had both been through so much that it was done. Like I don't know if I just hope they get a lot of therapy after this, those poor kids. But it kind of parallels back to after he beat Gwen just puts her head on Finney's shoulder again. And it's like they're connected. They know they have each other.
Mm-hmm.
It was a hard ordeal for both of them, so.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, because she in a way lived through it. I mean,
that is honestly my biggest fear, is for someone like a sibling or, you know, someone that I'm extremely close to just disappear, especially in the midst of like this grabber situation. Oh my God, I don't know what I would lose my shit. I'd be out biking around looking for clues too. Shit.
Yeah. I think it shows the desperation that you do anything to find your family.
Exactly. And that moment that the dad shows up too, and he's all apologetic and he's saying he's so sorry and, you know, not acting, I suppose. He probably is extremely happy to have them both finally safe and sound and everything. But the way the kids were so emotionless at that point, and I think, I don't know, maybe I'm looking too deep into it, but in Finn's case, I think with how many mood swings his dad went through versus this grabber and his mood swings, I don't know. I just feel like it's got to be tough after that point, you know, trusting this abusive figure in your life.
Yeah. I can't imagine having to go back to basically a similar situation in a way. Like, I really think the reason Finn survived was because he had experience dealing
in
with
a toxic
someone like that.
Yeah.
In a toxic household. He could immediately read the grabber because he had to read his father so many times.
Yeah, and Robin kind of says that when they're on the phone call and they kind of have the heart-to-heart, the last phone call. Because he says, he tells Finney that, he's like, Finney, you've always been a fighter. You know, you might not throw the punch, but you know how to, you know, get back up after being beaten down. So, yeah. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. He goes back to school and everybody's like talking about how he killed the grabber, and he's kind of like a badass now.
He intimidated his own bully.
Yeah, and like, I don't know how I feel about the ending.
Oh, I love the ending. I think that's awesome.
I at first felt weird about it too.
I don't know. Okay.
But at the very end, he goes back he gets to his homeroom. He sits down next to that girl, Donna, that he, you know, has a little crushy on. Obviously.
Yeah, not in the back like he normally does.
Yeah, and he says, well, she says, hey, Finney, and he says, call me Finn. And the movie ends. And I think that's very symbolic. At first, I was like, that's fucking cringe ending. You know, the first time I saw it, I didn't like it. But now, rewatching the movie and having him, you know, that's him growing. And it's kind of like he's returned as this kind of hometown hero character. And his friend Robin had always said, I'm not always going to be around to protect you. So, like, and Robin had helped him overcome. And Robin had always been the one person who calls him Finn. So that was kind of him growing into that character that Robin had always wanted him to be.
So, like, when you put it like that, I like that better. But when I watched it, all I could think about was, like, it was almost like he had this cocky confidence that, like, wasn't natural. Like, he killed a man.
Right.
And it doesn't matter the circumstances. That should be very
traumatic.
And exactly. And instead he was like, oh, I'm a man now kind of thing. Like, I don't know. That's the kind of confidence I felt like it had. And it was very cringe to me and very
I didn't feel it like, I didn't see it like that though. I just saw it as him as like, going back to school and like because he doesn't really like show anything. It's just everybody around him is talking about it. He just kind of seems like he's just like,
okay, so
I'm just back in school. Like I just want to move on with my
like
life.
he's standing straighter and he's like walking and he's actually like looking people in the eyes and he redid his hair. And he, instead of going to the back of the room like he normally does, he walks immediately right up to his crush and sits down next to her before her friend.
I just think it shows that he's more confident.
I don't know. And I know, but that's kind of weird to me. Like you're confident because you killed a guy.
Well, no, just because like he's grown up. Like
I don't know. I don't know. I felt like it was weird.
I think he kind of walked into the school in his usual manner, like he seemed down as he usually does.
Yeah.
But as like now, I think everybody else sees him more as like less of just somebody to pick on and more of like, okay, this kid's lived through a lot. Respect him. He's fucking killed a man. That's dope. Yeah. But even intimidating his bullies, that's when he kind of picks up like, okay, maybe this is a new leaf for me, I think.
And it's also just like a second chance. Like he lived through it, like he's lived.
I get
like,
that. I guess for me, it would just be very traumatic and I would not react that way at all.
Well,
I suppose.
I think it was just more of like a Hollywood ending,
Yeah, and I think that's why I probably didn't like it. Because literally the whole movie is so good and not Hollywood, and then they do that.
I mean, in real life, he would be like in therapy and shit, and like probably not going back to school right away.
Well, I felt like it was like high school. Because it was almost like he was in middle school-ish, and then it was like high school, because it was like a different set of lockers.
It might be like a time jump or something.
Yeah, because it was the same biology class, so like I feel like I was wrong, but when I first saw it I was like, oh, he's in high school now, so he was in 8th grade and then he went to, it was like the next
but he was still partnered with that girl, so it must have been after.
But then he was still like, he just walked up to the girl, so I was like, okay, maybe I was,
it must have been,
it was just like a weird,
I don't know.
like I don't know, like I don't like the ending, but after hearing Stevie's version, I don't hate it.
Good. I'm glad that I mean,
like, I don't know how I would change it to make it better, but yeah. I'll let Stevie influence it and make me like it more.
Maybe they'll show more of his psychological trauma in the second one. I don't know.
Maybe that's my problem. I just want him to have psychological.
You just want him to be like in therapy session, like having nervous breakdowns, and
Yeah. I want more psychology, please.
Yeah, we're gonna have to read the book, and then we'll have our own little book club session.
It is in my Amazon cart right now.
Is it already?
I'm going to. I already put it in my Amazon cart. Yeah,
I love it. And yeah, that's pretty much the movie.
So yeah,
shall we rate
the movie? What's our rating? We're not forgetting our ratings.
We do 1 out of 10.
Mitch, we're not
right?
forgetting. Yeah, 1 out of 10 Ghoulies.
Well, I give it a 4.5 on Letterboxd out of 5, so probably like a 8 out of 10.
Ooh, an 8. Okay.
I still have some issues with it, but it's grown on me a lot.
What are your issues with it?
I don't know. I just kind of wish it showed more, honestly. Like,
okay, so my ending being bad was not okay, but you want more gore. Okay,
yeah, I just want more child deaths, I guess.
Oh wow!
Even though that I was literally just talking to you about the reason why I don't want to watch The House that Jack Built is because children die in that movie. But
yeah, we can't watch that movie, but we want more. All right.
Very torn on the child murder thing, but I think a movie about child murder needs more child murder in it. I don't know.
Sometimes child murder is okay.
Yeah, I mean,
I guess that is going to get missed so many times. My goodness.
We are definitely not condoning child murder.
No.
Only in fictional scenarios.
Exactly.
Oh my
my
sister's just getting
my sister's trying to sleep, and we're just talking about child murder. I don't know. I guess.
Oh my goodness.
Like the first time I watched it, I just thought it was going to be more like the ending was very like fast, like the way that Finney just like takes out the grabber, like
Yes.
his first try and everything. It's very fast. I don't know. The ending just seemed rushed, and I wish they would have, like, in some of the characters, like, there is good character development, but like, I wish we would have seen more of like Robin and like. But I realized that the movie is already close to 2 hours, so they can't really do that without making it like a 3 hour movie. But I don't know.
Yeah, I get that.
Like the characters were so good that I wanted more of them. You know?
Yeah.
Yes, I'll agree with
Yeah.
that. The characters were so good. It was almost a bad thing because they were just like, I want a whole movie about every single one of these characters.
Yeah.
Right. Literally,
Like, almost
every
like a-
single one. Even
almost want like a
Bruce, I would
series,
watch
like-
more about Bruce.
Of just like
Oh yeah, if every single character had their own movie, I would be okay with that. I would watch that.
What if American Horror Story took the idea of this and like made their own season out of it? I think that would be perfect.
I'd watch it.
They'd make
Yeah,
it darker.
I would watch it for sure.
Oh god, it'd be so good,
Mm.
and we'd get so much more.
I don't know. I think I would be upset because I really like these actors that are playing.
Well, they
these
have to keep
characters,
these
though.
actors, obviously.
Okay, well, if they kept these
in a
actors,
perfect world.
Yeah.
if they kept these actors, American Horror Story, if you're listening to this, take note. You
If
gotta keep
only.
the actors, and then you gotta just expand a little bit, okay?
Yeah, I agree with that.
So you give an 8. What do you give, Stevie?
So I will happily give it a 9.5 out of 10.
Oh, you didn't give it a 10.
I know.
Wow.
Well, I mean, there are a couple things I would change about it as like a writer, but
Okay,
No.
what would you change about it?
I guess just some of the script a little bit. Like I would probably sprinkle in a little bit more dialogue in places, and then I would have also changed the ending a
Mhm.
little bit. I like the Call Me Finn, but I wouldn't have ended right
Yeah,
at that
yeah.
moment.
Yeah, I'll
Um,
get that.
But no, I think like the aesthetic was perfect, the characterizations and development was so well done, the acting was delicious, and the script wasn't by any means bad. Like they were all good lines
No.
that were so well delivered by everyone. I absolutely
Yes.
loved this movie. And I picked this movie because I enjoy a good ending. Like it ended on a good note. I like, the hero gets away, like saves the day. I just like a feel good movie. This isn't always feel good, but in my case, it is.
Yeah. It's very crowd pleasing, I guess.
Yeah.
See, for me,
I'm an easy bitch like that.
I would have liked it to be a little bit more nihilistic. I don't know. That's just I like movies that with like kind of like a gut punch ending and not like
See, I don't. That's a
you
no
know,
for
like
me.
I mean, I guess I wouldn't have wanted
So
to
to
see
make-
Penny die, but I don't
See, I don't like movies like that. You tell me are good sometimes. I will leave the theater and it leaves me with such like an awful feeling and it makes you
Like-
think for like a week afterwards. I can't handle that. My like ooh. Not for me.
Okay.
Oh, we need to watch
I wanna
Smile
look at
then
the
because that has
I'll
the
think about it over.
that's like
dear
the
God.
perfect ending.
I'll
for
think
me.
about it over
We should-
dinner and then I won't think about it again. Like that's what I want. I don't want to have to keep thinking about this.
Well, you brought up. I'm going to give my rating because you tied into kind of what I was going to say. So I'm going to give it a 9. 9 Ghoulies. The reasoning, I love this movie, but it doesn't make me think. And it's a good it's not a feel good movie by any means, but for a horror movie, it's like it finishes it up. Everything's tied with a nice little bow, but like I'm not really gonna think about it much. Like there wasn't much like psychological thought put into it, even though it was very psychological thriller. There wasn't much, put into it that would make me be like, oh, this is what they were thinking or this is what they were doing, like because it was all kind of tied up or it was all kind of talked about, and so it's not like I don't know how to put it. Like it doesn't get into the psychology of the killer, which I was really disappointed about because I was really looking forward to that. It doesn't even get into like the psychology of Finney, of how he feels afterwards or even how he's really feeling during. it doesn't really get into his psychology of it, because that's like, this is psychologically draining. Like, he was not only abused beforehand, but he's abused after, and they don't really talk about it. Or even something like the town. They don't even get into like how it's affecting the town. They kind of talk about it where Finney's like, oh, all of us kids know your names. But they don't really talk about, in depth. They just kind of use little one-liners to kind of string it along. So I kind of understand how you would change and add more dialogue, because they do really put in one-liners to answer whole questions, which it works really well, but it's not like, I feel like they could have done it a little different. Not that I would change it, because I really like this movie. But I was like, they could have made it so much more scarier. Like, as a horror genre, it falls flat.
Yeah.
If it was just like a thriller, like, all of the jump scares were very, like, I called them out immediately and wasn't scared by them because they were very, very predictable.
Mm-hmm.
There needed to be more Ethan Hawke, I think, honestly.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God.
Like, I wish it would have focused on him a little more.
Yes. Yeah, if it was, like, we don't know why he was doing any of this stuff. And so it was kind of like, okay, he's a psycho murderer that kidnaps kids. Cool. And, like, that's where it drops off. And it's like, okay, well, why is he doing this? That's what I want to know. And so I'm really excited to get the book, because I hope the book goes into it a little more, or at least, gives you some clues.
It's such a weird movie.
Because
it's like...
It is
like,
weird. And, like, it doesn't...
It's like, it's a dark
even
material.
Go into the black phone.
It's a dark material, but it's not a very dark movie. Like, I don't know. Like, the material is dark, but it's not, like, very, like... I don't know. It just goes back to, like, it's very pleasing for the, like, audience.
General audience.
And that's how...
Yes. And, and, like, there's so much psychology behind the dark phone. I know there's so much psychology behind the dark phone. It has a meaning. I don't know what it is, because it didn't talk about it, but it's got something to do with his past. And I wish they would have dug into the grabber's past more. They could have done even just something a little bit, just a little teaser, and they did nothing. There was nothing in his past. Like, the only thing they have about his past is that he called him Johnny and his name's Johnny. And so we think he was quoting his dad. But that's all we have. We don't have anything else.
Yeah.
And so I wish it would have went into that more.
I do agree with that. Like, they showed all of these little, like, past montages for most of the dead kids. I wouldn't have minded seeing one of him when he was younger, after, like, his death or something, just for a moment. I don't know. I didn't, because
honestly, I didn't care about the dead kids ones, because it didn't mean anything to me, because they weren't really a part of the story. Like, Bruce meant something because you met him, but any of the other kids, you didn't even meet them until after they were dead.
Right. I know that the paper boy, Billy, that was like a vision. Well, all of them were actually visions. Yeah. I suppose they did have meaning there.
Yeah. But, like, they didn't add any depth to, like, the actual vision. Like,
I guess they didn't add any depth to who this
the audience
was.
Like, yeah. But they, like, I don't know. I just felt like they could have taken that time and done a short little montage of, the killer, or, like, and I almost wonder if there's more Easter eggs. That's why
we should look up, like, deleted scenes or something. See if there's anything, like, missing there.
Well, and there are times where, like, when you read a book and then you watch the movie and, like, they miss the whole point of the book, but they get it right. So, like, I feel like that the book will probably explain, like, what the black phone is, whereas the movie doesn't.
Yeah, it was a phone from his childhood. He'd had it as a kid.
Yeah. But we don't really know what it means, or, like, what it is, or what it represents.
I suppose.
Like, he talks to ghosts, and it breathes, and it has, through it. Like, it I don't know. It represents something. So I don't know. There is a version of the book that says it's like a movie what's it say? It says something about like a movie edition of the book. I'm thinking about getting that one too to see if it ties in.
Well, that was the black phone.
That was the black phone, my friends.
Woo! Piper is barking at me, so I'm going to go let her outside and bid y'all adieu.
Okay, well, next week we're watching Silence of the Lambs. So,
Yay!
not next week. Whatever time we're
Probably
Next
sometime next
episode,
month.
I guess.
so good at next episode, if I can use my words correctly, next episode we are going to do Silence of the Lambs. So follow us on the socials so that way you know when we're gonna put that out.
Delicious.
All right.
Yep.
Well,
So I think that's it.
All right.
stay spooky,
See
boys.
you next time from the
Ghoulies
Ghoulies.
out.
Stay spooky.